Setting our hearts on things above never robs today of its joys. Rather, it brings to each day a zest for living and a new and keen vitality. This quote is from Lottie Beth Hobbs in her book, If You Would See Good Days. And I wanted to share it because the heading of this particular paragraph says, living out of this world adds new richness to each day. And she actually goes on to say, imagine this to be your last day on earth. Suddenly, everything is beautiful. Your friends are wonderful. Your husband is priceless. And your children are the sweetest in the world. The faults of enemies seem small and insignificant. And friends, oh, how you love the touch of their hands. And loved ones, oh, how sweet it is to hold them close and drink in the precious moments. Suddenly, heaven feels real. God seems very personal. You are confident that stepping into the spirit world is only a move into a better world with joys too sweet for this earth. Immortality is too necessary not to be true. And this awareness leads to all earthly ties a new appreciation, and to all heavenly ties a stronger reliance. And this is earthly living at its best. I love this, and I've shared it on Facebook as parts of it as a quote before, but I wanted to share it today because I feel like this just summarizes what we're trying to accomplish with this podcast. To our listeners, welcome back. This is season 4, episode 1. Thank you for joining us for a conversation. And it is our hope to do just this, to remind us to set our hearts on things above, from Colossians 3, verses 1 and 2. And in this particular chapter, she shares from somebody who wrote about her last best days on earth. And this kind of thing is kind of on my mind because in our own home congregation, we have lost 3 of our members within the past 3 weeks. But this lady that's writing these thoughts knew that she was near the end. And she said, if I were to live life over, I'd take more time for the savoring of beauty. And she mentions simple things like sunrises, an old brass coffee pot, things like that. She said, I would eliminate enough outside activity so that I could be always the serene core of my home. I would get, closer to people faster. When death is imminent, we open our hearts quickly and wide. How much more Christian love there would be if we didn't wait for death to release our reserves, and I would live each day as if it were my last one, as I'm doing now. And I love these reminders of keeping the big things and keeping our perspective and heaven-minded. And Carla, hopefully we pray before every episode, don't we, that that's what we accomplish and that God will be with us as we chit-chat about personal things, but also about the topic of the day. So for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, thank you so much. We want to let you know that we also have a Facebook group called Looking Up with Kathy and Carla, and have created a wonderful community of Christian women sharing things. And often we, after the airing of an episode, we'll share extra things, maybe pictures or things that we've talked about in that episode. So we'd love for you to join us over there. So before we get to today's topic, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a million years. How are you doing, Carla?
Really? I mean, it's been 3 weeks since we sat down and had a chat. So
I thought it was kind of funny how when you were like, so what's new? I'm going, where to start?
Yeah, everything. Because we didn't talk.
We've lived a whole life since we last recorded this podcast. So I should tell everybody that you're Carla Moore and I'm Kathy Pollard and we're your hosts.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I need a reintroduction.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm doing well.
You look like you are. I like that length. That hair length on you looks very good. You look very youthful.
Oh, well.
Yes.
I'm laughing because this is one of the bedrooms in our house. So we have better internet now. We just tried something new. I think we've gone through every single possible scenario of internet out here in the country. There's no fiber. We couldn't even get that, like, we used to call it Roadrunner, Spectrum, that kind of stuff where it's a cable. We can't get it out here. Well, we can if we pay like $8,000, but a few other things I need to maybe save my money for. But hopefully I'll be able to record from home now. But John has been setting this room up. It's just been like fruit basket turned over because when we got back, I know I already told y'all, when we got back from Denver in March, we made the old garage, the old playroom, the old whatever it used to be, my office. And then he took the bedroom that's right behind this, which used to be Micah's bedroom, to set up his office, but he never really finished it. It's been like stuff has been stacked everywhere. And I don't know how he works like that, because I need things to be settled.
I can't have clutter.
No, and he had my gun cabinet that holds all the quilts in it, and he's got kids' books and everything. Anyway, so Brian and Shannon have been here this week. Brian longer than Shannon, but they've set up this other bedroom with John's desk, which you can't see, and then this podcast setup, because I think John's going to start doing some recordings for some little short videos and some other things. Yeah, but it's this huge ring light in front of me, which is very distracting, which now you can see it, right? We were laughing at it because I look like an alien with it reflecting in my glasses. But hopefully this will be where I get to record from now on, and John will use it too. So that's been going on, and there's lots of things been going on. But yeah, I've missed you, and we haven't even texted that much, really. We've just been both busy.
I know, here and there, but nothing significant.
Remember when we were 9 or 10 and summer was like carefree, and you just go play in the woods until dark, and now
till you're tired.
There's lots of things. Yeah. So how
summer just fills up. You just go from one event to the next.
It really does.
You finish with camp, you start prepping for VBS or everything else coming up. So
yeah. Well, how was your camp?
It was good. It was a great week. We had really mild weather until the very last day. And so I was really grateful for that.
What happened the last day? Heat or storm?
Yeah, heat. Okay. Yeah, it was just, it was beautiful, clear skies. In the morning, my girls' class was in the morning, and one morning the girls were even chilly. So that never happens in camp. So it was just beautiful. The very last day, it got hot, and it's been hot ever since. We've had really hot, muggy, humid days here. So, but my garden is growing like crazy and also shriveling up at the same time.
How is that possible?
I feel like it got this real, after all the rain we had in the spring, it was kind of ahead of schedule, and I'm trying to harvest things right and left. And then we've had this really hot, dry week, and we can't really stay on top of the watering, it seems like. And my squash leaves, which are prolific, are just looking kind of wilty all the time.
Yeah.
So, and the ground's doing that thing where, you can see the clay, the red clay under the grass, and it's cracking because it's so dry. And I always say that summer is my favorite season, and then stuff like this happens and I'm going, well,
yeah, maybe not. The heat, the reality of
the heat not so much. Yeah, exactly.
I was trying to remember, what is it that makes summer my favorite season? I think the clothes are simpler for me.
Less laundry.
You don't have to have all the layers. There's less laundry. But I got to thinking about it one day, and we were sitting outside on the deck, and the sound at night, the cicadas or whatever they are, the big bugs that make the noise. I love that noise. I have to not think about what's making it. But it was on our anniversary. Our anniversary was a couple weeks ago.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And we were just outside and kind of enjoying the night. And it took me back to the day we got married. It was at 4:00. And by the time we finished with our reception and everything, because the reception was back at my house, which was 20 minutes from the church building, at least. But when we left, it was 8:00. And we were going to North Austin to spend the night. And then we were going on from there to New Mexico. But when we left, I remember it was still daylight, at 8:00, it was still daylight. The sky was this beautiful blue and pink and all the colors, and you could hear the cicadas. And I just remember driving off with John and thinking, this is the life. Like, we're married, this is the rest of my life, and the weather's beautiful, and we get to go and have a honeymoon. It was just, I think it was that day that I just really started loving that season and that sound and the sight of the night sky, the evening sky. And so anyway, that's just kind of a side note. I remembered how I felt that night. It was a fun memory.
The longer days has to be at
Mhm.
the top of the list. But I also love the types of foods that we eat in the summertime. I
Mhm.
love anything fresh from the garden. I really miss that in the winter, but all the fresh produce, I'm really looking forward to when the tomatoes are ready, or you can go
Mhm.
get some good local corn. We don't grow corn. All the fresh herbs. I love all that stuff. I just can't get enough of it. And
Yeah.
I kind of, how, I don't know why I'm just veering off track here, but did you ever, when you were a
Because that's what
kid,
we do.
count down till Christmas? And then
Mhm.
when Christmas was here, you're almost already sad that, well, now it's here, it's going to be over before I know
Yeah,
it. And then it's another.
exactly.
I kind of have that at summertime, when the
Mhm.
garden is bursting and the herbs and everything's going crazy.
Yeah.
I kind of have that feeling of, now it's here and I have to make the most of
Uh,
it because it's going to be over and then I'm going to miss it.
mhm. Yeah, I did that on the solstice. What it, the 20th or 21st,
Yeah,
when you know that's the longest
that was
day.
the
And
longest
now it's
day.
going to
Yeah.
start going the other direction. Like, oh, I don't want it to go away. And we still have 3 months of
Oh,
good
yes.
daylight in the night. But
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
anyway, it's been good. It's been good. We've got had quite a bit going on, just personal family stuff. My mom is getting ready to move and just different things. It's her decision, and I won't go into all of that, but there's just a lot of things associated with that have been emotional, and just the cycle of life. It just reminds you that you've got to live in confidence and view of God, and she's okay. She's not sick or anything like that, but just transition and change is hard, and so we're doing some of that. But we've got happy transitions too. And I know I told you on the last podcast that Micah and Courtney are expecting again, but I didn't tell you, although I did tell you, but I hadn't told everyone else that we've got another grandbaby on the way, and this one is Jake and Liz. They are unexpectedly expecting again, and I don't want to steal any of their thunder. She said they're going to announce it between now and when this podcast airs, so I trust that they will. But they have, we've talked a little bit about the infertility that they experienced, and Jordan and Aaron did too. But Jake and Liz, for I don't remember how many years, I want to say about 5 years, they tried to have a baby, and they had Turner and Darcy via IVF. And that may be a discussion we can have another day, because I know a lot of people have problems with some of the ethics surrounding it. But they found a clinic that honors all life, and I'll set that aside because that's their business, and they can talk about it. But anyway, they've got Turner and Darcy. Darcy is 6, 7 months old, so she will barely be a year old if Liz makes it to her due date, which is towards the end of November. And so we're going to have two little babies in
Oh,
November.
wow.
And yeah, so I
Congratulations.
know we're so
That's
excited for
big
them.
news. That's the
Yeah,
best news.
yeah. It was
Very
kind of
happy for
funny
you.
because when we found out, was we had stopped at their house on the way home from Denver, and we'd been there for maybe 15 minutes. And Alyssa said, Jake's got some news for you. And I was thinking work news or something like that. And I just kind of flippantly said, oh, are you pregnant? And he was sitting across the table from me, and he said, I am. And I just kind of gave him that look like, yeah. And he goes, I'm not even kidding. And I looked at him again, and he said, we just found out 20 minutes ago. And so
Oh,
they were both
wow.
just like stunned, because I mean, they didn't, it wasn't with any kind of help, or, it was on their own. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're praising God for
Beautiful.
these little babies that are on their way. And this is a little boy. They're going to announce that too. So I'm not stealing any thunder. So two little girls and a little boy. I'm
Oh,
excited.
so
We
happy
haven't
for
had a boy
them.
since Jackson. He was our
Yeah.
first. So
Wow.
yeah. Yep.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what can I say to top that?
You don't have to. No
It,
topping required.
we have had a lot of family type things. Father's Day
Mhm.
happened since we've talked, and Emily, that was on a Sunday, and Emily had everybody over 2 days later for a celebration at her house, and that was fun. She's so good about getting our family
She
together,
is.
and she's been doing it more and more in her home and cooking for all of us, which is a big deal. And then my in-laws celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. And so this weekend, by the time this airs on Monday, it'll be over, but everybody's getting together for a party for them. And 60 years together, it's such an accomplishment. It's such an example for all of us. And I'm so grateful for that, for knowing them and, having them in my life, but just rejoicing in the fact that they've hit this huge milestone. It's so great. So grateful for that. And then my mom has a birthday. By the time this airs, we'll have already celebrated it, but we're going to get together with her for that too. So lots of little happy family things going on. But other than that, we also went to the Homestead Festival.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask you about that.
And this year was so different from last year, because last year was our first one. We didn't have peaches. And this year, we're listening to things a little bit differently now that we also have a dairy cow, and we hear things differently and we're more interested in. And I also found that Neil was much more engaged. Like he was you go to all these sessions and you can go to demonstrations or lectures or, buy things or whatever, but he was engaged, and I would see him kind of leaning forward, and listening. And he might turn back and say, oh, wow, and talk to me about something. And he wanted to go, there was one presentation, he wanted to go talk to them in person afterwards about something. And I was just grinning the whole time, because I'm thinking, I never would have guessed in a million years that he would be
into
all
homesteading
in.
now too.
He is into homesteading. And so for Father's Day, I got him a ball cap, but it says Motley Meadows on it, established 2019. So
how'd you do it? Did somebody make it?
I ordered it. Yeah, I ordered it from Etsy.
Okay.
But since he's a real farmer and all. Oh, but I was going to show you a couple things. We found this cute little plaque, little art that says soap for sale. If I ever make a batch of soap to sell,
I was going to say, are you making soap?
I can put this in the farm stand, but I just loved it. It's a cute little thing. And then Neil surprised me. There at the festival, there was a leather company called, I had to write it down, the Ox and Cart. Ox and Cart Leather Company. And Neil surprised me with this gorgeous leather bag. Isn't it beautiful?
I'm trying not to envy from afar. I can smell it.
Oh man, that's what I was going to say. It smells. Look at the inside. It's the color of my Bible too. I love this shade.
What was the name of the company?
Warmer. Ox and Cart.
And did he just go get it, or did he ask your input which one you wanted?
Well, we were walking through there, and I was actually looking at something. Father's Day was coming up, and I'd been saying to him a couple of places, if you see something you want to pick out for Father's Day, do it. So we were looking at like belts and wallets, and they had these gorgeous like briefcases, leather. Oh, I mean, just beautiful. And this was hanging on the wall. And I just kind of went, ooh, that's stunning. I just kind of did a once over thing. And he didn't buy anything. And, we walked out, and I'm walking, and I'm looking at the next pavilion that we're supposed to be going to for the next session. Well, he wasn't behind me. And so I thought he must have decided to find something for himself after all. So I'm just kicking around, walking around, and finally I'm like, what's taking him so long? And I go in there, and he's buying this bag.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
good job, Neil.
Right. It's, I really wish you could smell it. It's fantastic. But
I'd have my whole face in that. Who was it equipped last year? And I had my purse on the chair next to somebody, and I came back in the door, and they had their head in my purse.
Smelling your bag.
Smelling the leather, yeah. Like, okay.
I haven't even used this one yet. I haven't put anything in it, but I feel like I'll be doing that when I show up. If somebody says something like, smell it. Yeah.
Just make sure you don't put anything stinky in there.
I'll try not to.
No dirty diapers from Jude or Amara or anybody.
And if anybody's interested in my hair, look at these ridiculous.
Yeah, you've got a couple of inches there.
I got a couple of inches of, dark roots and some silver sparkle going on.
Nice.
Most of the time, by the time this airs, I'll be at about 3.5 months since my last dye. Most of the time, I'm just excited. Especially at home, I pull my hair back most of the time, and I can see it coming in, and I'm like, grow, hair, grow. And then when I'm getting ready to walk out of my house, then it's harder because
Yeah.
it's just it's the awkward stage. So that
Well,
is
but
hard. I will
still,
admit.
yours is brown. It's not, I know you've got some gray or silver or whatever, but it's
Mhm.
just, to me, yours looks normal. And the way you've got your camera situated, all I can see is the top of
Yeah,
your
that's
glasses
very
down.
intentional. That's very
Oh,
intentional.
okay.
If I move it like that, you can really see
But
my
yeah,
dark
but you
recess.
usually have some of that on purpose anyway. So
Yeah,
you don't look, you really don't look any different to me yet.
that's good. That's good. I'm at that awkward stage where it looks like I'm letting myself go.
Okay,
I
well, let,
saw,
you're letting your hair go.
so, well, I'm in a couple of support groups.
Seriously?
Yes, they don't call them that, but it's like the Gray Book is the name of one of them, and Going Gray Gracefully, I think, is the name of the other one. But people are always sharing like motivation or tips, or you've got this, or nobody regrets this, or all the things you need when you're
Yeah.
like, ah. And
Mm-hmm.
why did I
Are they on
start saying that?
Facebook?
Yes,
Okay.
I was actually going somewhere with that.
You're in a support group
Yeah, I
because your
know, but
hair's
why did I bring
because
that
you
up? I
didn't.
don't even know. It's
Uh,
going.
train left the station.
Yeah,
I'm
I
so
was.
glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, when I interrupt myself to give back information, that's a dangerous scenario. Oh well,
Mhm.
maybe it'll hit me later. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's where I'm
Well,
at.
one more little thing about cover up your hair again. Okay. One other little thing about mom and the transition. Her little puppy dog. She's got a little mutt, a little rescue dog named Baby Girl. And we are looking for a home. And not that I'm not really bringing it up on here to look for a home on the podcast because most people live far away from us, but that's just that's to me, and I think to mom too, the hardest thing about this transition is that she can't take her little dog with her. And so I don't know, maybe it is that I'm asking if there's anybody in the area. Mom has some very specific requirements. Like she's told me, and I've promised her. I mean, it's a
Oh,
serious thing, because I know
yeah,
how
that would
much
be
she
so
loves that little
hard.
dog.
Hmm.
She came along in December of 2017, and my dad died in April of 2016. And the dog that she had had for years died right around the same time. So
Hmm.
2016 was a rough year for mom, and she just kind of wanted to wait a little while. And so by December of the next year, she was ready. And so we kind of started looking. And a friend of hers, and I can't even remember who it was. It seemed like it was somebody associated with Hill Country Care here in town, knew that mom was kind of looking. And Baby Girl, she found her on the side of the road, about to cross the
Oh,
road. And she stopped,
oh.
picked her up, and brought her to mom and said, I just wanted you to see this little puppy. And she was a couple years old at the time. And she's got huge long ears, and she mom says she has to be an inside dog. She has to have IAM's dog food. She has to have a place to run. So she's mom, my heart just hurts for her because your doggies, your kitties, they're part of your life and part of your family. And so I'm hoping that I could find someone that
Mm.
lives close by that can bring her to visit sometimes. And that's just,
Oh.
emotionally hard. And my
Hmm.
heart hurts for my mom. Kind of hurts for me a little bit too, because I love Baby Girl, but our life, we just can't. We're gone too much. We'd have to find boarding for her, and
Yeah.
anyway,
Maybe
so
you
that's
can
kind
share
of,
a picture of her in the
yeah.
group, and if anybody knows
Yeah.
somebody down there.
Maybe the reason I'm bringing it up is just because I know people have been through this and have done
Hmm.
this, and it's just, I feel like our little group is kind of a support group too. So
Hmm.
provide some support for my mom because she does listen. So anyway, that's kind of what's been going on in our life, is
Okay.
preparing for that kind of thing, and not a whole lot of other things. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah. Did you happen to notice the time when we started?
It was around noon, so it's been about
Okay.
25 minutes. So we
Okay.
probably need to move on.
We do, and I just wanted to be able to keep track of that since
Yeah.
since I'm driving this time.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in control
um.
of the steering wheel.
All right. I love being in control.
No, you don't.
I do.
You don't like it when it's your turn to lead.
Oh no, yeah. I just meant in general.
Yeah. Control issues.
Control issues for sure. Is there anything you want to share anything else you want to share before I get started?
No, we're ready.
Okay. We're going to talk about our favorite Proverbs. And I forget, did I ask you to pick like 3?
Yeah, but it's
Did I
funny
say
when you
that
brought
part?
this up, I was thinking, okay, 3 chapters of Proverbs, because that's going to be a long podcast. And then I realized
Yeah.
you were likely meant Proverbs in the Proverbs.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Not
that's what I
whole
did.
chapters, but if that's what you did, that's great.
No,
Okay,
I picked
good.
individuals.
Yeah, so we're each going to share about 3 of our favorite Proverbs. And I thought this would be a great first time back, kind of easy thing to talk about. And it actually ended up being a little bit harder than I thought.
Yeah, it's time consuming.
It is. And also, the ones that I'm naturally drawn to, I kind of thought, well, I wonder if these are overdone. Like maybe I should be looking for something more obscure, but then that would be cheating because it wouldn't really be my favorite if I had to hunt something up
Yeah.
to talk about it. So anyway, why don't you go first?
Okay, I can do that. Yeah, it was difficult because there are so many good ones, but I just picked up my Bible that I kept the most notes in and just kind of flipped through this to see which ones I had the most notes on.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is my favorite of the 3, but it's the one that's closer to the beginning. But I came up with 15 verse 4, Proverbs 15:4. Is that one of yours?
It's a part of one of mine.
It's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So ahead. We might overlap a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah. It's always interesting to see how we overlap or don't. But Proverbs 15:4 says, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. And I think I copied it out of ESV. But there's so much contrast in Proverbs 15, and that might be what you're going to talk about. I don't know. But when you look at the definition of gentle, a gentle tongue, it's a wholesome tongue, it's a healing tongue. And I think that's what I read the most about, was that it really meant a tongue that heals, or words that heal, things that that make a situation better instead of worse. A gentle tongue is a tree of life. And when you think of a tree of life, it's just John always in a certain lesson asks us to close our eyes and picture a tree of life. And then he wants us to describe it. And so I've heard so many people talk about a tree of life that is shady, and it's so comforting to sit underneath it. It provides shade, it provides rest. The roots go way out, and it's usually next to a riverbank or whatever. But to me, what a tree of life does, it feeds and it nourishes and it comforts, it protects and it restores. It does all those good things. So a gentle tongue or a healing tongue is something that nourishes and protects, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. So perverseness, you tend to want to, when I think of that word perverseness, it's not exactly what the definition is, because it means deviating from what is good, or crooked, or deceit, or irritation. So words that are irritating or broken or crooked, that's what breaks the spirit. It causes despair. So anyway, I was just thinking about how I think I tend to go towards parenting with this verse, because you hear, if you're in the grocery store sometimes and you see a mom and she's surrounded by her 2, 3, 4 kids, and she's screaming at them to shut up or to whatever. And it breaks my heart. And I've been there, I've been to the grocery store with 3 kids or whatever, and it's not an easy thing. But I just always think about a child's broken spirit. I think there was even a commercial that went on and on for years about what you say and what a child hears. So I love this passage because it reminds me, and it convicts me. Honestly, more than anything, it convicts me, because I tend to not have a gentle or a healing tongue when I'm irritated. I usually bite back with something that's sarcastic, and that's something I've tried to rid myself of, because it's ugly. Sarcasm is ugly. But how our words, that we've got to, there's that word again, intentional. We've got to be intentional with our words, to think about being able to heal others, or to bring things back together. to make things better with our words rather than breaking someone else's spirit. So I think of that with parenting, with marriage, with church relationships. I think elders can speak healing words rather than words that are irritating. Of course, it made me think of the passage in Colossians that talks about parenting, how fathers are to not speak words that provoke their children to wrath. That's something that it made me think of. Don't exasperate your children. So that's maybe not my favorite proverb, but it's something that has been impactful to me. And I've thought about it, especially that phrase that it breaks the spirit. Words that are harsh break the spirit. Words that are crooked or critical or hard can break your child's spirit or break your wife's spirit or your friend. So that's kind of the first one that I started with. What do you think about that one?
Well, before I tell you what I think about it, I'm just going to go ahead and share one of mine because it's pretty much the same thing. And then we can talk about them together. So this is the one I had down as number 3, and it's Proverbs 15:1. So you shared verse 4. Verse 1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And then I also included verse 4. "The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit." And that whole chapter is about the tongue. And that what I started noticing about it when I started just skimming through the Proverbs, I knew already that there were well over 100 verses in Proverbs that have to do with our speech. And a lot of it has to do with, anger and harshness and bitterness and all these types of things, perverse speech, like you mentioned. But I was surprised at how many had to do with this idea of softness. And it would use words like gentleness, a soft answer, a soothing tongue. There's a big emphasis on that. So it's not just the things that we say that can make a situation worse, but how we can speak to make a situation better just by our tone. And I think that is so key. And I know it's a challenge in my own life. You said your first thought went to parenting. My first thought went to marriage because I feel like I start out pretty good with the right tone. And then if I feel like it wasn't received well or reciprocated or whatever, it's gone, and then, but really, what is a gentle, soothing, soft answer? But one that's consistent, regardless of the response or the situation. And, and it can't be something that's just when you feel like it. It's that word that you used. It's very intentional. And when you speak that way, I think it must come from that type of a heart. You've got a gentle, soothing, soft heart. It's your demeanor and how you choose to respond to the world and people and present yourself. And what a challenge that is. Because like with most things, if the circumstances are favorable, sure, I can have a soft and gentle and soothing spirit. But when I'm squeezed, or as you say, irritated or aggravated, fed up, frustrated, then what? Then I'm the one that makes the decision and how I come across. And I think it covers not just the words we use, but our body language, the tone of our speech, all of that goes together. And I really thought this would be a great personal study, just in private devotional time, just to go through and note how many times there's an emphasis on softness and gentleness, the soothing spirit. And, we read about that in the New Testament too, that God sees that as beautiful, that gentle spirit. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I don't spend enough time thinking about that, praying about that, trying to demonstrate that.
Oh, I know I don't. Because and it's probably not just, I know it's not just the spoken word, but like you said, it's a mental thing. Because if I don't control what's going on in my head, that inner dialogue of the snarky response or the or even when you do respond, gently patting myself on the back for doing that, and then expecting a certain response in return that I may or may not get. And then if I don't get what I want, then I return to the snark or the sarcasm or whatever. there's a book, and I know I've brought it up before. It's the Mark of the Lion series by Francine Rivers. And the main character she's in all of the books, but she's the main character of the first book. Her name is Hadassah. And I think more than anything, what I came away from those 3 books in a good way is how she responded with a kind or a gentle or a soft response. And she was a slave in the book. Of course, I know it's a book, it's a fiction book, but the author, what she intended was for people to learn from her characters. And this character, Hadassah, was harshly treated. She was treated with contempt by some. She was ordered around, and she was a slave, not just a servant, but a slave. And I just remember so many times going through that book and marveling at the way she responded to harsh treatment. And it's come back up in my head, in my heart many times since then. We say, what would Jesus do? And I think to myself sometimes, what would Hadassah do? And it may sound a little bit ridiculous because it's a fiction book, but it really had a huge impact on me. And she was, instead of being angry, or when someone sinned and did something terrible, she grieved about it rather than being angry about it. And I know there's a place for anger, so I don't mean that, but she was sad. And to me, that's part of a soft response, is grief instead of anger or harshness. How do we respond to things? So there's so much contrast in this chapter that talks about, soft versus harsh. And I think there's so much to learn from it.
Well, and I think we marvel about situations like that because what do we expect? We expect the giving them the what for, telling them off, putting them in their place, and a lot of times that's satisfying when we're watching it in a movie or a show or reading it in a book, and they've just taken it and taken it and taken it. And when they finally turn around and in all their righteous indignation, they let them have it, we're like, ha ha. But that's
I think you and I have even laughed about what we should have said. I should have said.
Yeah, in my mind later. Yeah. But that's not biblical.
No.
And so, but that's worldly. And it's presented as the moment of triumph. And to be able to articulate and give them the what for. But so when we see something so completely opposite of that, to turn around and respond in gentleness and kindness, that it catches us off guard, that just shows you how easy it is to get caught up in a worldly mindset.
Yeah.
And start thinking that way. In my mind, I'm defending myself. Yeah. And if you provoke me enough and poke the bear enough, I might just let you have it, and finally give in to that indignation.
And part of what the devil wants us to, wants to push us so much and wants us to be satisfied with that, that response, it feels good temporarily to be able to tell them off or say what we wish we could have said. And that's what the devil wants us to be happy with, is to be temporarily satisfied rather than thinking long-term, thinking down the road. If I say this now, if I have that look on my face, is it going to help things, or is it going to heal things, or is it going to hurt things? And that's what this is all about, is healing and making things better. You mentioned marriage. That was where your first thoughts turned. And of course I thought that too. And it made me think of my friend Phyllis Siebert. She always has the most wise things to say. She's probably my oldest, not old age, although we're the same age, but longest running. I mean, we've been friends since we were about 12, 13 years old, that I keep in touch with still. But on our anniversary, I posted a picture and she commented, "It's amazing how love can grow when it's nurtured." And I've thought about that so many. It's a simple thing to say, but it's so true, because, when we're doing counseling and we're talking to couples who don't nurture love, you don't pay attention to it. You don't consider your words or weigh your words. Well, that's what I think about with nurturing, is that you're, like you do with plants, you're caring tenderly for it. And that includes your words and how we speak to one another. And so, yeah, a gentle, healing tongue is a tree of life. And that's what I want my marriage to be like. But perverseness can break a marriage. So, yeah.
Well, and have you ever excused it by saying that's the only thing that seems to get your attention?
You've been in my house.
Whether it's with, your husband or your kids, it's like, I tried the nice route. I tried to be sweet. I tried to be calm, but no, you didn't. You didn't pay attention or respond until I had to let you know how upset I was. But how ridiculous is that? That really is just a lame justification or excuse for losing your cool, losing your temper. And
I do remember those times when I feel like my head was spinning around and is anybody listening to me? Been there.
Okay.
So I know we can't be perfect in everything. Can't be perfect everywhere, but we're trying, right?
We're trying. Are you anything else on that one?
Nope. Need to move
All
along.
right, my next one kind of builds on this one, but we're going back to Proverbs chapter 4, verses 23 through 27. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead, and your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established. Do not turn to the right or the left. Remove your foot from evil. Keep your heart with all diligence. So this has been one of my favorites for a long time. And for a couple of reasons. First of all, it repeats that same phrase at the beginning and end of that section, keep your heart with all diligence. And that word keep means to guard or watch over or protect. And like picturing the watchtower, and somebody is there constantly walking around, making sure the enemy is not coming, checking the perimeter, making sure everything's safe and secure. And that's really, that picture seems a little extreme, but isn't that really what it takes to guard our hearts and to protect our hearts with all diligence? For out of it spring the issues of life, and then follows all these different things. And thinking about our Christian walk or relationships, like marriage, all these different body parts this text mentions that can get us into trouble. And it talks about our mouth and our lips, we know can get us into so much trouble. We were just chatting about that. Our eyes and our eyelids looking straight before us, where our feet go. And so if we're guarding our hearts the way we're supposed to, and if you go back a couple of verses, I don't really think of Proverbs as building on each other, but if you go back a couple of verses, you read about keeping the word of God. And I imagine that is how we guard our hearts, by filling it with the word of God. But if we are protecting our heart and watching over our heart, then all these other things, all these other body parts will do what they're supposed to do. So if I'm minding my heart and I'm taking in the word of God, my lips are going to say, my mouth is going to say what it's supposed to in the way that it's supposed to. My eyes aren't going to be looking at anything they're not supposed to be looking at, or anyone. And my feet aren't going to take me anywhere I shouldn't be going. It just helps when we start with the heart. It helps all the actions and choices that we're then making throughout the day. And so it's just such a good reminder, because we can catch ourselves sinning with our mouth, our eyes, our feet, and try to address it. Why did I do this? What safeguard do I need to put in place, or whatever? But a lot of times you're just kind of looking at maybe the symptom instead of the problem. And a lot of times it's a heart problem. And that's where we need to go, is straight to the heart. And what do I need to be doing with my heart, so that in all of these other areas, I'll do what I'm supposed to do and not do what I'm not supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Did you read you started with verse
23 to 27 is what I read.
Oh, 23 to 27.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess because I'm looking at the NASB, it was a little bit different, but wow, I'm just thinking about, like you said, all of the body parts that are mentioned there and how they're all important and all included to be in control of and being guarding.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at all of the verbs in there too: give attention and incline your ear and keep and watch, put
Mm-hmm.
away, look directly ahead, watch, do not turn. So there's a lot of action involved in protecting and keeping our hearts guarded. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've
Well,
read
and
that
I
many times
think,
before, but never noticed that all of the body parts that are attached to it.
yeah, if you mark your Bible, that's one of the great things to mark is every body part that you find, you can circle it, and then you can underline the parts in the beginning and the end of that section about keeping your heart with all diligence. But in in addition to filling our heart with the Word of God, I think that probably also includes watching our influences. And, if you spend a lot of time with people who gossip or are angry, there's verses about not spending time with an angry person because
Mm-hmm.
his ways will rub off on you. Or if you spend a lot of time with someone who's always bad mouthing their husband or whatever, those are some more things that we can do. Or, um, in addition to trying to take in the word of God, is being careful not to take in things that are not going to be beneficial to the Christian heart, the types of things that we might watch or read or listen to. So
Mm-hmm.
there's different ways that would involve protecting and watching over our heart. And probably also a lot of prayer
Yeah.
and awareness. Are there things in my heart that I'm not even seeing myself? So that's my second one.
In verse 22, it says they are life to those who find them and health to all their body. I think it's interesting that it mentions physical health.
Mm-hmm.
and and how much do you think that that's tied to having the right mental and spiritual attitude? Because that's not the only place that talks about that. Even one of Lottie Beth Hopp's, you mentioned her, if you would love life and seek good days,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about your spiritual health, your emotional health, but your physical health can be affected by these things. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good one. Love that one.
Okay. What's your second one?
My second one is Proverbs 27:2. And this one is a little bit different, I guess. It's just something that I think about sometimes, and even probably more than I should. But it says, let another praise you and not your own mouth, a stranger and not your own lips. And so I was just thinking about how sometimes we're really tempted to let everybody know what we've been doing or what we've accomplished or how great we are, even though we're not maybe saying it quite like that. I mean, we're not going to go out and say, guess what I did? You know how great I am?
Creative.
You will never guess what all I have got accomplished this week. And but we do it in certain way. I know I do it. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something that you happen to be involved in, or um, I mean, some people are more blatant about it than others. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think I judge motives too much, but I know sometimes I do slip into that trap. And I think, why are you telling that? The humble brag or the
Mm-hmm.
whatever, where you just happen to let it drop that you went and saw so and so today and took them this really delicious dish of whatever. And again, I'm not trying to be snarky about that and say people shouldn't ever tell you things that you're doing, but it's just so much more satisfying to let God take care of that. And he
Mm-hmm.
really does. He really does let it's you if you just are quiet about the good things that you do, let God find a way of letting other people know that you're doing good things. And if he doesn't, then you don't need, be satisfied with what God, the praise that you'll have from him and the
Mm-hmm.
satisfaction of knowing that you've done something that's good. But there's another verse that's kind of parallel to this. It's Jeremiah 9, verses 23 and 24. It says, thus says the Lord, let not a wise man boast of his wisdom. Let not a mighty man boast of his might. Let not a rich man boast of his riches. But let him who boasts boast of this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who exercises loving kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For I delight in these things, declares the Lord. So, I think about, there's a lot of educated people who, have a lot of letters behind their name, and they're smart. They really are intelligent people. But how did they become that way? They're only that way because God allowed them to be that way, because God gave them the brain. They've put work into it, but they would not be who they are if it were not for God. And I think about strong people. Yes, they work out, they do things, but they wouldn't have those muscles. They wouldn't have that body if it were not for God. They would not have that health were it not for him. And people who are blessed materially are that way because, yes, they worked hard, but because God gave them the means to do that. So really, anything that we stand in front of as what I've done, what I've accomplished, what good, we're involved in, is only that way because of God. So if we're going to boast in anything, just boast in the fact that we know the Lord, and we know his character, we know his qualities. So I love that. I love this proverb.
Well, we definitely have gotten creative about dropping some information without making it seem like we're, intentionally boasting about it. But I think about probably one that I use the most is acting like you're so busy.
Yeah.
And why are you so busy? Oh, so-and-so asked me to do this, and I've got to do this, and and it's like, it's that whole, and, I don't even know if I could fit it all in, and really, here's my question though. Does it count if it's with your husband?
Why do you ask?
Just random curiosity.
Asking for a friend. He knows the good things you do.
Well, because I make sure of it.
Yeah.
I know we've had this conversation before, but like if I happen to do, does it count as bragging if I mention it on this podcast? If I happen to do some cards, instead of just dropping them in the mail, I leave my little stack on the table for him to come home and see first, and then drop it in the mail, or I'll just happen to mention in conversation that I called so and so, or I, a tiny little good work. I want to make sure, for whatever reason, I just want Neil to know.
I don't think that counts. I think it's okay to get your husband to, let him see that you are trying to do some good things. I don't think that counts, honestly.
Yeah. Well, probably because I know it's very gratifying when he follows it up with the way I expect him to.
Yeah.
Because he's going to say, "Oh, good job, baby." That was nice. Oh, good. I'm glad you did. Oh, that was thoughtful. He's gonna pat me on the back.
Makes your marriage better.
I just smile and I go, "Oh, well."
Yeah, it was nothing.
It was nothing. I was just letting you know.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that you knew.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one for sure. It goes back to the heart again, though, doesn't it?
Of course.
Why do you serve? What's your motivation? Why do you need the praise?
Yeah. I did laugh. There was another passage that came up, 2 Corinthians 10:12 says, don't measure and compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, because they're without understanding. It's not he who commends himself who is approved, but he whom the Lord commends. The reason I laughed is because I thought about all these Hollywood award shows. And when you really strip it down and think about what they're doing, they're all just in a little circle congratulating themselves. And, it's like a bunch of actors saying this actor's the best actor and clapping for one another. And, I'm sorry, but it's a little ridiculous to me. And it made me think, when I laughed one day, I thought, what if preachers did that? You're going to have an award show for preachers. Who's the best dressed?
Oh, would
who
that
had
be
the
terrible?
best lesson? Who has the best? Yeah. So no, we just don't need to commend ourselves, and we compare ourselves with those who. It just brings up that whole icky feeling of self-comparison to someone who. Because there really are those who are impressed by that. And so then they're like, oh, well, I don't do anything. I'm nothing. I am not worthy. They do so much more than I do. And it's not helpful. So Anyway, that's my second one.
Good one. All right. So I'm laughing because when you mentioned that, because my third one is in that same chapter. And I thought of all the Proverbs, two of ours were very close. My third one, Proverbs 27:14.
Okay.
And it's he who blesses his friend with a loud voice early in the morning, it will be reckoned a curse to him. And I love it. That proverb has always made me laugh because I kind of took it at face value, and I like for quietness in the morning. And I'm just that type of person. I really don't, I don't think I'm grouchy in the morning. I'm just quiet and I don't want to talk and I don't really want to be asked a bunch of questions. You know, I just want to have quietness with a cup of coffee. And so this verse always makes me laugh because I'm like, amen, amen. But because I knew we were going to discuss it, I started researching it and I found out that there's kind of mixed ideas about what it's actually saying. And some say that it really has more to do with timing is everything. You know, that you might be trying to do something nice, but if the timing is off, it's not really nice or thoughtful at all. You know, consider the circumstance or the situation or whatever, which is kind of what you see at face value there. But some people say that it has more to do with, I just lost that word for when you compliment somebody and you don't really mean it. Like
an insincere compliment.
Well, you're complimenting to get something, flattery. That it has more to do with flattery and that someone is loudly saying it first thing in the morning so that this person hears, the neighbors hear, and this person is obviously trying to gain something from it. It's insincere. And so some commentators say that that's what this verse is really all about. And some have even pointed out the early in the morning thing has to do with that's when you're supposed to be blessing God first thing in the morning. And instead they are kind of self-serving and going around and trying to, you know, boost their business connections or whatever, you know. So there's different thoughts on what this verse actually means, but I think we can all agree that nobody wants a loud voice early in the morning, regardless of what you're saying.
Oh no, my husband has a loud voice and he wakes up ready to go.
So does Neil.
And I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Neil's very cheerful. He whistles, he hums. He, you know, and now that he goes out to the barn, I can hear him from outside. You know, I'm sitting in there quiet with my cup of coffee and I can hear him whistling or singing or humming or, you know, and when he comes back in and he's pouring milk into the jars or getting a cup of coffee, I hear him whistling and singing and humming. And it doesn't bother me when he's in the other room doing it. I kind of think he's cute, you know, but I just don't want him asking me questions first thing in the morning.
I'm trying to remember what John used to sing to the boys in the morning. He would wake them up and he would be singing like, you know, oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. But there's another one that he used to, little birdie with the yellow bill hopped upon my windowsill, cocked his starry eyes and said, get out of bed, you sleepy head. It's time to go wherever. Yeah. So they're like pulling the sheets over their heads and burying their head under the pillow, and nobody enjoyed it, but it also made them laugh, you know. So no one wants a loud, loud, obnoxious someone who's trying to just irritate you. But that I guess I'm kind of going against what it says because John did bless his children with a loud voice early in the morning, and sometimes it was a curse unto him. So,
well, really, I think it's timing is everything, you know, and I've always tried to consider that. Well, okay, that was not true statement. I know I should consider that when I've got things to share with Neil, things that I want to talk to him about. And I knew when the kids were little, you know, don't hit him as soon as he comes in the door.
Right. Yeah.
With everything that went wrong. And, yeah.
This is your son.
And the dishwasher broke and you know, so their timing is everything.
Yes, it is.
And you know, but there is wisdom to that, and there is wisdom in even relationships and friendships and what you say and when you say it and how you say it.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's still a favorite proverb just for the whole loud voice first thing in the morning.
It is very, you can just see that verse, right?
Yes,
it has a lot of feelings attached to it.
It does. What's your third one?
My third one is probably the one that I feel the strongest about, because I've talked about it here on the podcast before, but like we say, not everybody remembers every single word we ever say.
What?
I know, it's unbelievable. It's Proverbs 29:25. And it says, the fear of man, this is the New American Standard. The fear of man brings a snare, but he who trusts in the Lord will be exalted. And I like the New American translation, because a lot of the other ones will say, like the ESV says, whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. And so it kind of loses some of the oomph to me, because we'll be exalted. When you think about the word exalted, I tend to think, up on a pedestal. But when I really dug into that verse, that's not what it means. The little backstory to this is, the first time I remember reading it, we were in Singapore. And that was, I know I've talked about this before, but it was a place that John had been before a couple times, and he loved it, loved the people, loved everything about it, and he really wanted me to go. And I was terrified about the trip itself. It's just it's on the other side of the world, literally on the complete opposite side of the world. And for just a really long time, I was a homebody, and I just wasn't a traveler. I didn't do a lot of things like that. And he really wanted me to. And I just remember having this internal battle with myself, knowing that I knew that if I did what he really wanted me to do, that God would bless me. And so I ended up going and absolutely loved it. Loved the people, loved the churches. We were able to get to know a lot of different congregations there in Singapore and Malaysia. And I remember exactly where I was when I read this. It was at night. It was right before bed. We were in the Jurong Church of Christ. They have a school there, the Four Seas Bible College, I think is what it's called. Peter Chen is the director, and they have a little apartment there that they use to keep traveling preachers. And I remember thinking, when I read, the fear of man brings a snare, but he who trusts in the Lord will be exalted. So fear is just one of those things I struggled with. And fear of what? Fear for me in regards to this was of the unknown, of travel, of being somewhere without being able to get to my kids, a new culture, new foods, new whatever, fear of the unknown. And that was like what it snared me, it trapped me. It was like a noose that held me down. But when you trust in the Lord, you will be exalted. And when you look at the meaning of that verse, exalted, it means lifted high or unattainable. So to me, that the imagery in that verse is, there's your fear. That's like one of those traps in the grass that when you walk over it, it grabs you and holds you, prevents you from progressing, prevents you from going and doing, might hold your mouth shut. It might keep your hands from doing good things. It might keep your feet from going places. But yet, to me, the imagery of that, if you trust in God, it's like he reaches down and lifts you over that trap and keeps you high, and it keeps you unattainable. It's like the devil can't get to you that way. So trust is everything when it comes to your fear. And I've seen that over and over and over in my own life. I've seen it in others' lives. But I was trying to think, what is it that we fear? What kind of fears do we have that trap us? And I think a lot of them are things like what others think of us. What will somebody think of me if I do this? Even thinking about John 12, for fear of being put out of the synagogue. What do people do in modern day language? What will someone think of me if I ask this question? What will they think of me if I do this or do that or whatever? Because, it goes on to say in that passage, they love the approval of men more than they loved the approval of God. So anyway, that I think that has been more meaningful to me, even more than it was in the beginning, because I think about my fears, because I still have them. But I realize, I've seen what happens when you trust God, and I know you have as well, that that's just a meaningful proverb to me. It's been something that I've thought about many, many, many times.
Yeah, I keep seeing this little phrase here and there that says, true living is doing something that scares you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And because it forces you to step out of your comfort zone and grow and experience new things, and much more meaningful is that truth when it comes to Christian living, and doing something that scares you a little bit, if it involves standing up for God or serving him in some way, in all those
Mm-hmm.
ways that you might, initially say, I could never do that,
Yeah.
or that's not my skill or my talent or my comfort zone or whatever it is. And there's something to be said for, it probably isn't, and that's okay, because we all work together and do what we can. But sometimes it's just a matter of, well, how do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Are you just saying that, or have you actually tried it? Have you actually
Yeah.
experienced it? And with your example, we've known lots of people that were nervous about going on maybe a short-term mission trip, and ended up
Mm-hmm.
being one of the best experiences of their lives,
Yeah.
and changed their life. And we know that God definitely works that way and blesses through the courage. There
Mm-hmm.
was when I was looking through this Lottie Beth Hobbs book that I quoted in the beginning of the episode, I have about 3 of her books, and another one, I think it's the one, Choosing Life's Best by Lottie Beth Hobbs, was one of the very first books that we studied in a ladies' Bible class
Mm-hmm.
weekly when I was first married. And I was noticing my
Mm-hmm.
childish handwriting in the margins. And then there's a couple chapters in there that I taught. Now, keep in mind, I'm 20 years old. And the things that I wrote in the margin, reading now, I was like, oh, I said that. Because they just seem so, I don't know, harsh or stern, or we need to
Yeah.
make sure we don't blah, blah, blah. And we never blah, blah, blah. And with our kids, didn't even have kids at the time, and I look at that and I kind of cringe, because I think, well, what did you know at 20?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you think that those women who were significantly older than you were going to listen to you say? But there's also a part of me that thinks I wouldn't say that now, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to come across self-righteous or judgmental, or, in some ways, being more fearful and
Mm-hmm.
saying what needs to be said in situations. Whereas in my
Yeah.
youth, I just kind of went, well, this is how it is.
Yeah.
I
Those
know
kinds
there's
of
a
things are
balance.
cringy.
There's a balance there, but,
Uh-huh.
you know, kind of goes back to your whole not being afraid, stepping out and doing something courageous, and then let God do something with it. That's
Mm-hmm.
his part.
Yeah. It's amazing how often when you say something like, I could never do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then, oh, guess what? Here's an opportunity for you to do just that very thing. And okay,
Yeah.
am I going to say, okay, God, or am I going to say, can't? And, I realize that not every time we can't say, we probably can, but it's okay if we don't say okay every time, because God's going to give you another opportunity. But I think
Mm-hmm.
just that little baby steps of growth. And sometimes when you say yes to something that's not super scary, it gives you the courage to know that you really can trust him and you can step out and do this really scary thing. So
There's a beach in Florida on the Gulf side, somewhere in the Tampa Bay area. I can't remember. It's Fort something. I can't remember. But you have to. There's a sandbar. You can see a sandbar kind of off in the distance. Now, to get there, you have to swim, a good piece, and it's pretty deep between you and the sandbar. And for swimmers who aren't very confident, it can be intimidating, that you have to swim through all of that. But once you get to the sandbar, you can stand up on it, and the water only comes to about between your shin and your kneecap. And they have the most beautiful, humongous shells and starfish. I mean, that's where you find the good stuff. But
mhm,
you have to be willing to swim through the
yeah,
scary part to get there. And if you only stay where you're comfortable on the beach itself, you're only going to see the smaller shells, the looked over
mhm,
shells, what everybody else sees. And that's kind of, when you were saying that, it kind of made me think back to that, because I consider myself a pretty not expert swimmer, but I'm very comfortable in my ability to swim. And it kind of made my heart beat a little bit to go,
Mm,
oh, how far is that?
yeah.
How deep is that between here and there? But once you get there, you see all these beautiful things,
Mm.
and it was worth it. It was worth overcoming that fear or trepidation to experience something new and see something beautiful.
That's such a metaphor for life.
Mm-hmm.
Just, swim and go search and go do and because the good things are on the other side. Not that there's not good things on this side, but just watch and see how God uses those things to grow you and to enhance your life. It's not just about this is what I've realized. It's not just about glorifying God, although that's what you do, but God rewards you and gives you, it's that Ephesians 3:20, it's just amazing how much more he gives than what we can even think of or imagine. So do
It just
it.
makes me wonder the things that we are frustrated with in life, or that we feel like, life has not done me any favors in this area. I don't have any friends, or I don't. How many of those things are because we've been fear driven?
Yeah.
And, with the example of friendship, it takes some stepping out there to build and create relationships, and
Mhm.
putting yourself out there and being willing to invest time and to get to know people and to be a part of someone's life and invite them into your life. And
Yeah.
all of that takes effort, and more I think, a lot more of us are finding it that it's an out of our comfort zone kind of experience. But if you never do that,
Mhm.
you're not going to build those relationships and close friendships, and then you'll just be stuck with feeling sorry for yourself,
Yeah.
because I don't have that close friend, I don't have that relationship with people.
Right. And I always feel sorry for people who are just live in fear.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it really does look like living in fear. They're just fearful all the time. But sometimes it just looks like standing still
Mm-hmm.
and refusing. And I want to say you're robbing yourself of a lot of joy and robbing yourself of seeing God in action. But you can't make people do it. So
Well, I'm keeping an eye on the time. Do you have anything
mhm.
else you want to add
No,
to
I
this?
know we need to quit. And I
I
smell
have a
hamburgers. So I'm hungry.
Oh, I have a bonus one. I asked Neil what his
Oh,
favorite
good.
proverb was. He said Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So that's his. Do you have something good for you?
I do.
Oh, what you got?
I have it's a company called Sticker Mule. And these are the people that I use to print our stickers when we have
Mm-hmm.
them, and I just thought I would drop this in here because at PTP in Branson, I will
Yeah.
have more of these, but these are the ones from the right on my heart every word, but I also
Mm-hmm.
have the new ones. I've shown you these. Some new
Oh yeah,
stickers
that looks great.
that
That's so cute.
they're going to be fun, but I'll have those at PTP, but it's a company called Sticker Mule, and they have coupons almost every day. Like I got 50 stickers for $9 and free shipping. And
Wow.
I've done magnets there. I'm trying to think what all you can do, posters, you can do bumper stickers, anything that you can print, they do it. And if you just wait long enough, they'll have
Mm-hmm.
a coupon for you. I may have said this in favorite things at some point. I can't remember,
Hmm.
but I'm bringing it up again. That's my something good sticker mule.
That's a good one. I'm pretty excited about mine, but it's not it's not like exciting. But mine is how to boil eggs.
Okay, I'm always good for that.
I've tried everything. And, some people say put a pinch of baking soda in the water. Some people say steam it in your Instant Pot, or I've tried steaming it in a regular pot, which is like an inch of water for a certain amount of time. And then you have to drain it and plunge it in ice water for a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing works. And the steaming ones, you might be able to peel it a little bit easier, but the yolk is always smushed up against one side of the egg, which if you're
Mm-hmm.
making deviled eggs is no bueno. Well, it just so happens we were talking about this in the kitchen at camp, and Sherry Simpson said, well, when do you put the eggs in the water? Before it boils or after it comes to a boil? And I said, before. I mean, I've always done that. I've always put it
Yeah, I
in
thought they
cold
cracked if you
water.
waited.
Yeah, cold water. And she said, wait until the water boils, and then very gently lower the eggs into the water. So I tried that. Brought the water to a boil. I used like a strainer spoon and I just gently lifted each egg down into the water. And then I let it boil for about 12 minutes, which is a little bit longer than usual, but since, I didn't put them in there cold, I figured it would take a little bit of time. And then I just rinsed them in cold water and they peeled like a dream. Every single one of them.
Wow.
It actually works. And so that is my something good for you. Sherry Simpson's tip: how to peel eggs easily, boiled eggs easily. Put them in the water after it comes to a boil.
Okay, I'm gonna try it today. I
All
use those for
right.
lots of things. Boiled
Yes.
eggs, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so that makes all the difference.
Well, thanks.
There you
Good
go. All right,
tip.
well, I have missed you, and I'm so glad we were able to catch up. And for those of you who are still listening, thank you for sticking with us. We'd love to hear what your favorite proverb is, so please visit the Looking Up page and let us know. And Carla, until next time,
Keep looking up.
all right, love you, friends.
I love you too. I will see you soon.
Bye.